What's up guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we've got some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the best balanced formations in FIFA 23, this being the 4-4-2. But just before we get started guys, as always, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up, as it does really help me out. It's team of the season, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics for the defensive style, as always, I do like to have this on balanced. Now, the reason we have this on balanced is because it gives you the best control of your defense. So when you need to apply pressure and press high up the pitch, you're able to do that. And then when you want to drop back and be a little bit more passive, you're also able to do that. So it does give you the control over your defense that these other settings do not give you. Moving on to the width, guys, I like to have this on 35. This is so we can primarily defend in a nice narrow and compact shape. This means we're going to be able to block off all those attacks through the middle and stop our opponent running right through us. It's important not to have the width crazy low though, because it's still important to maintain a bit of natural width so we can cover the wide areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. So just keep that in mind guys. Moving on to the depth, I like to have this on 55 at the moment. The reason for this is it's a really nice balanced defensive line. So our depth isn't too low to the point where we're always getting pinned back and we have loads of pressure on us, but on the flip side it's not crazy high either to the point where one through ball will absolutely destroy us. So we kind of go for something in between. So sometimes we can win the ball higher up the pitch, other times we can sit off and be a little bit deeper. Moving on to build up play guys, I like to have this on balanced. This is because it gives you the greatest control when you are building up the play. What I mean by this is with balance you can play slowly and then you can switch it up to play a bit faster. You really have the variety that the other settings don't give you. For example, if you have this on slow build up and then you want to play quickly, you're not really able to do that. And on the flip side, if you want to play quickly and then you decide you want to play a bit slower, you're not really able to do that with fast build up. So I like to go for balanced, as you can pick and choose when you use what type of style. Moving on to chance creation guys, I very much do suggest direct passing. This is because it's by far the most meta option in the game. Basically, your attacking players will bunch up against your opponent's defenders, so you can do these really overpowered 1v1 isolation plays. This will give you the best chances to score the goals, and you also get the extra pass option because of the movements that your players will make in the box. I very much do suggest direct passing because it is by far the most important setting out of all the tactics in my opinion. Moving on to the width guys for the attack, I like to have this on about 42. There's not really a specific number you need to use. I'd say anything between like 40 to even 50 if you like is okay, but the reason I go for 42 is because I don't want the width to be too low to the point where it feels like my players are like really close together, and on the flip side I don't want it to be like crazy high either, otherwise it feels like my players are too far apart. So I kind of just like to go for something in between, as I feel like it works very well for me. Moving on to players in box guys, I'm having this on 6 at the moment. This so I can get some players into the box to create those chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now for the players you want to use guys, this isn't something you have to adopt, it's not something you have to use, but I'm just going to make some suggestions based on players I think work well in specific positions. So in the two striker positions, what I suggest you guys go for is like a balance between the two strikers. So what I like to do is have one creative player, this being Havertz, somebody that can still finish of course, and then on the right hand side I have like a more clinical finisher player, somebody that's always going to gobble up those chances but might not be as technical on the ball. I like to have this balance between the two, as I feel like you're able to mix up your attack a lot more. You're allowed to be a lot more varied, because for example if you just use two out and out finishers, let's say like Erling Haaland and Harry Kane for argument's sake, you're going to be very restricted in what you do because they're not the best on the ball, if that makes sense. So I like to go for that balance, as it really does allow me to switch up my attacks. Moving on to the right mid and the left mid, I suggest using really good winger style players. Now, these are players that are obviously very fast, have really good dribbling ability, nice and agile, maybe like the skill moves if you can get them, but you really don't have to worry about their defensive stats in my opinion. A lot of people when choosing right mids and left mids think you have to have somebody with crazy good defending. Now, this is obviously an added bonus. It does help to have decent defensive stats as they are going to be in positions where, you know, defending stats might help a little bit, but it's honestly not a necessity. So make sure you primarily focus on making these really good winger style players, as the defending stats are just a bonus and not a necessity. Moving on to the two centre mids, I like to go for a balance between these two. So what I like to do is I make my left centre mid a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that's going to stay back, break up the play, and make sure we're as defensively sound as possible. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defense and they're not too bothered about going forward. Now, to balance this out, I like to go for a more box to box style player in the right centre mid spot. So I like to go for somebody with a nice well-rounded card so they can do a bit of everything, and then a high work rate so you get the maximum contribution in both attack and defense. Basically, I like to have a player with a bit more of a free role to help us with transitioning from defense to attack. It just really helps me out a lot. Moving on to the fullbacks, I like to go for a balance between these as well. So I have my left back Roberto Carlos, who's more attacking, somebody that's actually going to contribute going forward for me, and then in the right back position I have somebody that's just going to stay back and make sure we're as good defensively as possible. It's not something you have to do, it's just something I like to do. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be meta players. Honestly, there's really not too much to say about them. Now, moving on to the player instructions, guys, on both the strikers I like to have them on stay central and mixed attack. Now, the reason we have them on stay central is so they're always in the correct positions. We don't want them drifting off into the wider areas as they are our strikers, so we do want them to be in the middle so they can finish off our chances and they're always in the correct position. Funnily enough, Kai Havertz for Chelsea often drifts off super wide, which makes him not very effective in front of goal and not a very good striker. So we do want him to stay central so they're always in the correct positions, especially in this game. We also have them on mixed attack as I feel like you get a lot more out of the players this way. If you have them on mixed attack, they get more involved in the build-up, you get a lot more dynamic movement out of the players, and they're not always just making the same one-dimensional runs in behind where you just through ball it. So I just feel like you get a lot more out of them that way. Now, moving on to the right mid and the left mid, I have them on comeback on defence, cut inside, get in behind, and get into the box for cross. We have them on comeback in defence, so we ensure that they're in the correct position when we don't have the ball. If you have them on basic defensive support, they can get a little bit lazy, which is not something we want. So we do put them on comeback on defence, so we ensure that they keep the correct shape. We have them on getting behind, so they're always looking to make those runs, you know, because these players in particular, if you have them on like balanced runs, they don't seem to move around that much. So I actually prefer to have these on getting behind as I feel like they benefit the attack a lot more. So getting behind, honestly, super good on the left mid and right mid. We also have them on getting to the box for cross, so they're not hesitant to get into the penalty area when we are in the space. If you have them on balanced crossing runs, kind of similar to if we have them on balanced support here, they're just a little bit static and it's not something I like. I also have them on cut inside, so they come into like the narrow areas and they get into those pockets of space which are really difficult for your opponents to mark. This also goes hand in hand with something I'm about to show you with the fullbacks, but yeah, these are the settings I have on the left mid and right mid. As for the left centre mid, the more defensive midfielder, we have him on stay back and cover centre. We have him on stay back because he's defensive, we don't want him going forward, and then we have him on cover centre so he does defend those central areas. As for the right centre mid, the more box to box player, we have him on the default settings and cover centre. We have him on the default settings so we don't restrict him all that much. We kind of want to give him a bit of a free roll, and then we have him on the cover center instruction so that he does defend those central areas. Moving on to the left back, my more attacking fullback, I have him on balanced attack and overlap. Now, like I said, this goes hand in hand with an instruction we have on the left mid and the right mid. So as you'll see, we have the left mid on the cut inside instruction, which means they're going to be covering those more narrow spaces. They're going to be cutting inside and running into the narrow areas. So what I do with my fullback is I put him on balanced attack and overlap. This means he's going to run forward on the attack when necessary and then make the overlapping runs to add the extra extra width to the attack, because if we have this player on, you know, for example, balance width, sometimes he'll stay out super wide and won't run into the narrow areas. It wouldn't be necessary for our fullback to overlap and give us a wide option, but because we have him on cut inside, there's not really anyone covering those wider areas, so we put him on the overlap run type so we can fill the wider space. So we've got players in the narrow areas and the wide areas at the same time. Super useful, super difficult for your opponent to mark. We also have the right back, my more defensive fullback, on stay back and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we always have at least 3 defenders back at a time, and then we have him on the overlap instruction for the same reason I said with the left back, in case we send him on a run forward. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on the default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2. If you have enjoyed or found this useful, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.